I've seen this video pop up on my feed 2 different times on the same Instagram account, sort of proposing this idea of a 9th album confirmation. I think she starts laying out a compelling argument. I think you guys know my theory or my sort of opinion on the triple album or 9th album theory. Obviously, I think there will be a 9th album at some point. Like, I don't think there's going to be a triple album. I think Breach ended the story. I don't think there's another album beyond that. That's my theory. I made a video about it. I think it's pretty clean cut. However, I'm always, willing to engage with other ideas that might get presented. I always love seeing in interacting with other theories, obviously. That's why Perligo Ponders exists in a lot of ways. I think this is interesting.
Paper yet again. It is so important. It is so important. It's the key. I write a promise.
Okay, so it cut off a little bit, but basically what she was saying is we need to look at this sheet of paper again, which he put out before the Clancy World Tour, because it's important. There's a lot of significance. Credentials is that she's an ex-English teacher and can tell there's more to the story. Okay. I've seen this pic before. It's weird that it's missing songs. Yeah, that is weird. It's off of Blurry Face, right? It's the not more than we ever imagined. Goner and Not Today are the missing ones, right? And there were some theories about why that was. He claimed he just forgot. Anyway, let's look at this.
In pencil, but my loyalty's in pen. Okay. So notice how these are written in rows of 3. And then we have this 7th one. This is not an accident.
Okay, so yeah, rows of 3 are significant. She's going to get into it more. I like the connection. Fair. Okay, rows of 3. So we got 3, 3, which is 6, and then we've got 7. The problem is that 7th is not an album, right? If she's going for the idea of there being a 9th album because we have 9 circles, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but it's important to keep in mind that and she does address it, but that column there is not an album. It's a collection of singles. Yeah, to your point, Rollins, I don't really buy the theory that he just forgot 13 and 14. If you're saying she later addresses why that is, then let's talk about that when she gets to it. So we can wait to see if she does. The interpretation that I saw that I thought made sense was that Blurry Face is being chipped away as Clancy is winning in the cycle, something like that. I don't remember exactly how they worded it because it wasn't my theory. It was someone else's. But
this is not an accident. Okay, this is the chronological order of how the cycle goes.
Seems like she's saying, because obviously this is not the chronological order of the albums. This is not how they were released. Vessel was not the first one. We had self-titled, Regional Best, then Vessel. But she seems to be saying that, okay, Vessel is the start of the story, then we've got self-titled as like chapter 2, Blurry Face chapter 3, and so on. Which would then put Scaled and Icy before Trench, then Trench before Clancy. I'm willing to entertain the idea that these albums are out of order when it comes to the story. I think that's compelling. I think that's interesting. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily disagree. I'm just not convinced, right? So I'm curious where she goes with that. Just for a point of clarification, she's not talking about the chronological order of the album's release.
How the story that we have seen unfold goes. Okay, follow me. Because you know what else has rows of 3? Do you know what else has rows of 3? This has rows of 3. And
yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. The connections to 9 and the connections of 3, rows of 3 stacked, always fascinating. And where she goes with this is actually really fascinating. I think it's fair to say this is the most compelling triple album or 9th album or Inferno album, whatever you want to call it, more to the story theory that I've seen.
And this makes so much sense in line with that paper. Because that we've had 2 red eras, the Blurry Face era and the Breach era.
This, I don't agree with. I think some people pointing this out in the comments as well. I think there may be 9 albums because Tyler has referenced the 9 circles in the Divine Comedy, which I think influences him. Yeah, but, there's 9 circles, 9 towers, 9 bishops. It's not like the number 9 has not been employed. I don't dislike the idea of there being 9 albums. There's something succinct about that. I just think there's a real lack of evidence of that happening, and this is feeling a lot more like a conspiracy theory. I mean, obviously all of this is kind of conspiracy theories in a sense, but more like a conspiracy theory really grasping at straws so far than something that's like really substantive evidence. But if the next era is blue, I lose it in the worst way.
Look at this. First circle represents Vessel, then self.
Okay, yeah, sorry, not to cut her off, but her idea, I like where she goes with it, right? Blurry Face and Breach, corresponding to the red circles. Problem is, there are other albums that have red theme in them. the red theme in them. And Clancy is also one of them. Clancy was pretty red coded.
Titled Thin Blurry Face. That is the first row on the paper that Tyler wrote in pen.
Mm-hmm.
So then we have, what did he put? Scale and Icy, then Trench, then Clancy, then the little...
Okay, so then these are singles. Okay, I guess. You know, like, that's where she starts to lose me a little bit. Again, I'm going to go in on it a little bit. I'm gonna kind of try to tear apart this theory a little bit, I'm sure. I really like what she's doing here. I like the way she's thinking. I just, the 9th album would be the 9th album. So to replace Regional at Best with Pile of Singles instead of having the Regional at Best album, it just feels weird. Like, if he's trying to communicate to us through this notepad by laying out 8 albums we have so far, or the 7 albums we have so far, not counting Clancy and Breach, then why would he not include Regional at Best? Why would he not include one of those 7 albums and just put singles? The thing that always gets me is Tyler writing the Breach track list in pencil. Yeah.
Over to the side stuff, the 7th thing on the paper that's like clear, lovely, heathens, etc. Then we have Breach. Breach is not on that paper, but it came next. So lastly, we have Goner. We have Goner. Okay, this is where it gets really crazy.
I might finish watching this video and be utterly convinced. I'm willing to have my mind changed. I would not complain if there's another album in 2026. I will not be upset. Yeah, I'm inclined to think people are just kind of reaching.
Goner is the song that is associated with the bishop name Nils. Nils. So I went looking up what Nils means. This is what came up. Nil is an archaic verb meaning to be unwilling, to refuse, or to will not.
Okay.
Originating from Old English, it is rarely used today outside the phrase willy-nilly. Will I, nil I. Will I, nil I.
Will I, nil I? Okay. I mean, I always like the linguistic connections, right? I mean, I've made them myself, especially looking at like dema, meaning the judge in Old English. Another use of Old English, I think, is fair to point out. Dema is a word that exists in Old English, and it means the judge. Nils itself doesn't seem to exist. Nil is sort of an old use of something that originated from Old English. Even that's fine. Like, I'm not saying it has to originate from Old English. Okay. I'm being a little picky, or a little bit of a stickler, I suppose. But it's not nils precisely, it's nil. But let's keep going.
Will I, won't I? Kind of like duality. Kind of like I've been saying, this entire story is about duality. Kind of like fairly local.
Sure.
I'm evil to the core. What I shouldn't do, I will. I'm not evil to the core. What I shouldn't do, I will fight. Kind of like, your soul knows good and evil. Your soul knows both sides.
Yeah, sure.
Are you getting this? Are you getting this? I've believed there was a 9th album for a while now. Now I am like even more certain. I was already pretty certain, but I'm just like, are you getting this? But wait, there's even more.
So Nils is pointing out a duality because it relates to a verb, nil, that refers to willy-nilly, will I, nil I, which means will I, won't I. The old language connection is part of the key. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm all for connecting to old language in understanding the lore. That's a very valid thing to do. Like I said, I've done it multiple times. I am all for being pointed in the direction of more connections like this. I don't think I ever made this nil connection. Again, I think it's a little shaky of a connection because it's not actually nils. We don't see nils represented. Like, nil being a verb means nils, you wouldn't have a plural form. Like, if nil is a noun in archaic language, archaic English, then nils being the plural form maybe could be something that exists. Nils doesn't really seem to actually directly relate to anything, but still, like, I'm willing to entertain something like this that even seems like a bit of a stretch. However, I'm not following the connection from that to nils meaning duality, meaning there's a 9th album. I can follow up to nils meaning duality, sure, I'll accept that, I'll grant that. But plenty of things about the story, as you mentioned, point to duality, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're pointing towards a 9th album. And again, I've put out theories that are a bit of a reach. I am all for exploring ideas that seem like a bit of a reach. This seems like a reach on top of a reach on top of a reach. But let's keep watching. Maybe it goes somewhere.
About nils or nil. Nil in British English can mean obsolete. It can mean an aversion to something. And it can mean zinc oxide.
Okay. So it's an aversion to something. Sure. We can find ways to incorporate that. Zinc oxide. Curious to know where she goes with that. I'm guessing it's probably blue.
Zinc oxide. So I went Googling, you know, moving my thumbs, and wouldn't you know, the combination of
how should I put this? Right now, definitely disagree, but great work on the video. And if she does end up seeing this, don't take it personally. I think this is cool. I think this is a cool video. I just disagree. Nils means victory if the people in Scandinavian.
Zinc and chlorine producing agent.
Zinc and
chlorine is commonly used to generate dense smoke.
Okay.
Which can produce a blue-white to pale blue flame under specific conditions.
That's cool.
Often associated with the production of zinc chloride.
Okay.
Blue Inferno. I have been preaching about this Blue Inferno for months now. Since Breach.
So, I mean, it certainly, could potentially explain the blue fire that we see in the outside. That would be cool to have an explanation for that. But
Dropped.
why do we make a song called Midwest Indigo? The combination of blue and red, purple imagery is pretty cool to look into.
Are you listening? 9th album, Blue Inferno. It's gonna happen. Mark my words. Please hold on to hope just a little longer, friends. The real ending, the alternate ending, whatever you want to call it, it's on its way. I am so 100% certain. I've been certain since I discovered this is a story about duality.
See, again, why? I'm probably stupid, but why? Why does understand that it's a story about duality make you think there's going to be a third album, a 9th album, another ending? What are you giving up hope for a 9th album? Yeah, I mean, I never had it. Again, look, I didn't think we were going to get Breach. I said this in my my other video denouncing the triple album theory, the 9th album theory. I was wrong about, the double album theory. I really didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't look into it as closely as I am for these third album theories, because part of why I'm looking at these so closely is because I was wrong. But I did always think there was going to be more to the story, because they said there was going to be more to the story. This time they haven't. They haven't teased anything that would indicate there is going to be more to the story. So either they're like just really subtly playing it and are really, really going to blindside us. They loved how much they blindsided us with the release of Breach, so they're going to do it to an even greater extent with something else. Sure, maybe. Anyway, I'll let her finish.
We have seen one version of the end, but we are going to see the other. We are going to see the version when Clancy cries out for God's help. In Goner, which is Nils' song, it is a will I, won't I. It is a will or nil. It is a, it's a duality thing, because we have both inside us and we have the choice. We have the choice. Ugh. I'm so excited. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.
Yeah, I'm not convinced, unfortunately. Great video. Again, shout out Annabeth. Go follow her on Instagram. Cool video, well made. I like deep dives like this. I don't know. I'm not convinced. I just, none of that evidence really felt like it connected for me. The connection from Nils to nil to willy-nilly, will I, won't I, felt like a bit of a stretch. But even if that is granted, which I'm not sure I want to, but even if I do grant that connection, I still don't really understand what significance that has. Like, at most, it signifies that Nils as a bishop, or Nils as a concept, or the song Goner, which is associated with Nils, which I would even like to confirm if that's the case, but I think she said it is. So I'm willing to accept that. If Nils represents a duality, I'm kind of left feeling like, yeah, so what? You know what I mean? Like, everything. Blurryface represents a duality. Clancy and Breach could be, the two albums representing their own duality. Breach and Blurryface could be a duality. We know there's a duality at play. I just don't know how that tells us something. So, okay, then fully accepting, granting so many of her connections all the way to the end of, all right, so the duality means that we're going to get an alternate ending to the story. We did get an alternate ending to the story. We didn't get an alternate album to Breach. We didn't get a full 14-track or 13-track ending, but within Breach itself, we got the album bookended by two alternate endings. We had City Walls at the beginning, and we had Drag Path at the end, bookending that album. And Drag Path presents an alternate ending to what we see in City Walls. It just isn't something we see playing out in a music video, but I think it is something which, and I think there's many reasons for that, which I've laid out, and people smarter than myself have laid out as to why we don't see Drag Path in a music video form. I mean, we do in the Drag Path music video, but that isn't a Clancy and Nico and Dema kind of video. It's not a lore video in that sense. But that's sort of my impression, is just like, yeah, you can make these connections, but I don't actually understand how that leads to a 9th album, or this being another album, or there being, 3rd album, whatever you want to call it. I think the strongest point, and this wasn't, maybe in other videos she's gone down this rabbit hole, the strongest point you can make is, well, why do we see the color blue teased so much if we don't then get a blue era? That, I think, is a fair question that I don't necessarily have a good answer to. We see that blue is the sign of defeat, according to Blurryface. Remember, there's always that second Clancy, the one Perligo was talking about from a series. Maybe there's something about him. Again, Drag Path. Truly, I think Drag Path gives us all the endings that we need. So maybe I need to make a follow-up video about Drag Path. The second Clancy, the one that I'm always talking about, I believe is the one who ultimately breaks free, and we see in Drag Path. But that's why we visually don't actually see that happen, because this is a future hope that Tyler has for something that will happen down the road with this other one who's been watching him in the background, learning from all his mistakes, and eventually will be the one to break the cycle. Even if she is right in that we are going to get another ending, if she's right that we're going to get an alternate ending to what we see in City Walls, and Drag Path is not it, I'm wrong in that interpretation. And Drag Path is, if anything, just hinting towards this alternate ending that we're eventually going to get. Sure, fair. She could be right about that. But that, again, doesn't actually prove that we're going to get an album. I think Breach being an album wasn't originally the plan anyway. I don't think that. I know that. They've said that. So if there's yet another ending, are they going to make another album? Maybe. But I don't think the fact that there could be an alternate ending itself either confirms that there's going to be a 9th album. It's hard because we've got so much info, it's hard to make it linear when talking about it. I'll let her know if you do want to chat with her. I would be willing to, I don't know if she does anything with YouTube or collaborations, or I would be happy to sit down and do a video with her and hear about what she thinks. Again, I thought the video was well done. I like the direction she was going. I'm just not convinced of it. But yeah, I'll be willing to have her on as guest.